Hi, thanks for joining Insurance 101, Modern Solutions for the Modern Business. My name is Jody Lyons, and I'm the owner of Ascent Insurance Solutions. I've been in the commercial insurance space for more than 10 years with a previous career in finance, and my mission in life is to help organizations save on their insurance costs, making sure they are properly covered if the bad thing were to happen, and also add services that do impact the cost of risk. A little bit more about me. I was in the finance world starting in 2003, and after the downturn, for any other oldies but goodies out there, I changed careers and moved into the insurance space. I got into governmental risk pooling where I became an underwriter with a focus on school districts, cities, and towns throughout the state of Colorado. In 2019, I moved out into what we call the real world from the risk pooling world, and I joined a high volume workers' compensation focused regional brokerage where I found that it felt to be very much a sales only environment where once I closed the deal, essentially, I really lost my ability to advocate for my clients. So I pursued my dream of combining both the client care that I held dearly throughout my career, as well as the market access that you find in the brokerage space, and launched my own firm, Ascent Insurance Solutions, in March of 2021. Just as a doctor cares about your health, a commercial insurance pro cares about your wealth. So when it does come down to your business assets or those that you're responsible for, would you really want to leave those to chance? All about commercial insurance. I'll actually try to keep it very high level for you. I don't want to get you too far in the weeds. How do you get coverage? There are a number of different ways to access the markets or the carriers. One of those are through the direct routes. Those are your captive agents or agencies, such as your State Farm, Farmers, Allstates, or you could go through the internet through the InsurTechs. There are a number of those that have been popping up on the click and pray method. Another way to access the markets is through the independent channel. These are your independent brokers and or agents or agencies. They do have access to a number of different carriers. The goal of that is theoretically to get you the best program or package possible, although I know there are a number of the large conglomerate brokers that don't always quite operate that way. So if you look at on your personal lines, your direct market access, that actually has the majority of the market share. They've got about 70% of the market share. And your independents, those have about 30% of the market share. Now, on the flip side, if you look at the commercial lines, it is completely the opposite. It's about 70% through the agency channels and about 30% through those direct channels or your captives. Why do you think that is, that it's so mirrored between the commercial and the personal lines? The biggest factor in that is that commercial lines are so much more nuanced. There are more layers of risk, there are different coverage types, different coverage forms, different carriers and their appetites. So when it does come down to a business and the assets, would you want to trust that to an agent that primarily only writes the homes and autos? Or are you willing to trust that to a hope and a prayer and clicking online? I would highly recommend going the independent agent route. Speaking of coverage, no matter how you get it, bravo to you if you do have it for starters. Did you know that 75% of businesses in the US are underinsured and 40% of businesses in the US have no insurance whatsoever? Why do you think that is? Is it because the cost is perceived to be too high? Is it not knowing what coverage is needed, or not having an agent that knows what coverage is needed, or not knowing how to access an agent that specializes in business coverage? Or is it not thinking that they need it at all? Very good questions. Just as we talked about all these different layers, this of course is not all encompassing. I promised I wouldn't take you too deep in the weeds, so we'll keep it very high level. Your liability lines, those are any third party claims that you have. So any claims that somebody else can have against you, your organization, your employees. Your property is for a property that you own, rent, otherwise use that you're responsible for, any equipment, anything like that. The package policies have a layer of liability as well as some of those property coverages, and you can purchase additional liability forms within those depending on what other exposures that you have. The workers' compensation, the coverage is statutory in the state of Colorado. There are a number of different markets available, and there's quite a bit of room to work with there. That does affect the pricing on that, which is a whole other video in itself. Your fleet auto, those are for any transportation exposures that you have, whether you have one auto out there or whether you have a whole fleet of them. Cyber liability is a big exposure right now with all of the hacks and such. Some of the other package coverages do have some layers of cyber, but it's not all encompassing. So it is important to have somebody that can take an in-depth look at those. The umbrella is in excess of your primary coverages for your third-party claims. Your builder's risk are for any building exposures. If you're building a building, you're having someone build a building, you're building someone else's, you're expanding, and the surety bonding for any contractual obligations that you may have out there. And when it does come down to pricing, how are those premiums determined? You have a number of different factors that do affect it. So again, keeping it very high level. Your business class codes, the industry does classify based on the type of business that you're doing. Because there are thousands of class codes, that would get way too deep. These are just some samples of different industries that you may see different class codes with. You're also rated based on the exposures. This is information on the company, which also ties into the class codes. The employees that you have, the types of employees, as well as their associated payroll. The annual revenue of your organization, that's a rating factor as well. Your property and equipment. If something bad were to happen, let's say your building burns down, what would the cost be to replace that? Also, your vehicles and drivers. What types of vehicles do you have out there on the road? And what's the history of the drivers behind the wheel in those vehicles? And this is a biggie when it comes to your rating and pricing. Your claims history. What kinds of losses have you had? Are there any sort of loss trends that you've had? Have you had many, if any, injuries? Are they employee injuries? Are they third-party injuries? What types of damage have been done? What kind of claims have you had related to your property? Have you been maintaining your property? And then, of course, the cost associated with any claims history that is looked at as well. So when it comes to the underwriter's mindset, they kind of go along with the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And this is where the advocacy really comes into play. You do want to have an agent that has a lot of market access to double check the different markets for you, or if you are non-renewed because of excessive claims, to be able to place you in a different market or with a different carrier. The support services that you're getting, are you getting any support services? Do you get help with your risk management, with your loss control, with your human resources? How is your policy structured? Is there room for improvement within your current policy where there could be some additional savings maybe, or are there any coverage pieces that are missing there? And of course, the cost comes into play as well. Where to even begin? There are so many questions. So if you have even the slightest question mark or consideration on any of these, I would recommend let's have a conversation, see if it is something that we may or may not want to work together. You never know. And if we don't, we don't. There's no pressure. But is your agency focused on commercial insurance? If so, is your agent directly involved, or are you left solely to an account manager to handle? I see that a lot. Are you getting any additional resources proactively, as well as shown areas of savings opportunity? Sadly, I see a lot of missed opportunity there. When was the last time that you've had your program benchmarked, whether it be your agency, your carrier, your overall program, additional support services? Has your agency sold or retired recently? And is the new conglomerate that purchased it pretty hands-off? Unfortunately, I've seen this far too frequently. And even for my agency, as new as it is, I've already had a number of different offers, and no, I am not selling. Last but not least, there are those chop shops out there. So have you ever fallen victim to any of those hard pressure, fast close shops? And then once they get the business in, then no one ever talks to you again. So if any of those are any issue whatsoever, or even a question mark, would love to have a conversation with you and see if we can help steer you in the right direction. So the services that Ascent Insurance provides, we do like to do a commercial insurance review on behalf of our clients or potential clients. For this, we'll review existing coverages to identify any gaps in coverage, any missing coverages, also savings opportunity, because that's always a big one. Who likes to pay too much for insurance? As well as marketability. Are there any other carriers that might have a great competitive appetite for your program? Also, insurance and risk management consultation. We do want to do our best to try to help keep your total cost of risk down, and that is by way of additional loss control, safety support, human resources support, claim support in the event that you have a claim. What can we do to help keep those losses down for you and keep your premiums reasonable for you? As well as the insurance package marketing. Whether you're with a carrier you've been with for a very long time that we work with, we can take over that existing policy. But as part of our due diligence practice and program, that is to check the other markets for you proactively on an annual basis, just to make sure that you are getting the best bang for your buck. So if you'd like to have a conversation about it, promise it's not high pressure sales or anything like that. We can be reached at 720-672-9774. You can email info@ascent-insurance.com, or you can hit us up on our website. That's www.ascent-insurance.com. Thanks so much, and I look forward to chatting with you.